The following program is a specialty program. Unless otherwise identified, the participants on the program are not employees of Chorus Entertainment. Opinions expressed may not necessarily reflect the views and policies of Global News Radio 640 Toronto.
And welcome to it. How about that? A little heart for you on Valentine's Day weekend in case you missed the correlation there. It is the PinPoint Health Show. We are ready to go. We hope you are as well. PinPointHealth.ca to reach out to Dr. Lou anytime. 1-855-55 Lou, DRLOU. But here and now, please take the time to call in with your health concerns. That's why the show is live. That's why we're doing it at 11:05. So you got plenty of time just getting the hour kicked off here. 416-870-6400. What is happening, my brother?
Hey, John. I'm good. How are you?
I am awesome and ready to do this today. What do you got in mind off the hop?
That's great. I like to really start the show as you do, reminding people. You mentioned one thing there. The reason why we do the show is to answer some calls. It's the best part about it in terms of trying to help people navigate their health, their pain and injury questions, and I'm happy to do it. The 1-855-55 Dr. Lou number is always available for that. People can feel free to call in or send emails to info@PinPoint Health. And that really is the point of the show. In terms of giving people some advice, one of the things that I think would really be important to go through today, I was asked, this is an interesting question because somebody asked me, and I thought it would be a good topic for the show, what are the top 2 or 3 exercises that you should avoid at a gym or when you're doing, training or whatever in terms of musculoskeletal health. And it took me a second, and I sat there and I thought, and I said, well, I don't actually think you ever have to avoid anything, but you probably have to avoid anything that you do wrong and that you don't do within the function that's available for your body. And that's a very important thing. One of the things that will often happen in the fitness world is that people are doing things because they've watched a video or someone is telling them to do something. And the reality is not all of our bodies are the same, John. In fact, every single body is different. And really, you need to work within what the reality of your body and your capacity and your function is. And so, the idea and one of the some of the key exercises or the classic exercises that will be brought up to avoid are things like deadlifts, squats, overhead pressing, this type of stuff. Now, taking into consideration, now let's take the example of an overhead press. If you're somebody that has any type of spinal problem that's happening, or potentially say something like osteoporosis, there's probably a reason why you would want to avoid that. But would I say that everybody should avoid an overhead press? No, not at all. I think so long as it's carried out in a proper way, in a functional way, that's a good thing. That it's a movement that will help you get stronger, and it's a functional movement. The one thing that I tried to explain to this person was there's a lot of movements out there when you actually stop and think about them. They're not actually functional movements. They're not things you would do in day-to-day life. And I think that is really something that, if you're not actually going to use that movement ever, but you're going to apply weight or resistance to that movement, and our bodies aren't designed for it, then that could potentially lead to injury. But, then we go into, probably the most notorious type of exercise that everyone says you shouldn't do is squatting. But when you actually stop and think about it, a squat is almost essential for everything you do in life.
100%.
Right? If you're gonna go sit into a chair, you're actually gonna start that by squatting. When you're picking things up, you should be squatting if you're gonna pick it up and not bending at your back. And so I don't think squats are inherently bad for us to do. I think it all comes down to proper function, proper mechanics, and those mechanics need to be in reality with what your body type is. Not everybody is the same. And one of the examples that I gave to this individual is if you've got someone who's got very flat feet, if you look at someone when they've got very flat feet and they stand there, they sort of become knock-kneed because their knees will fall through. So that person really needs to make sure that they have a wider base of support, that they're trying to roll their knees out, and then they can go into a squat. So there's a progression there where they really have to think about it. And if they do, and they do it the right way, then there's no concern. The problem is if you're not thinking about those things and you just go into it and you're thinking about the overall global thing, like, oh, I'm going to do a squat without breaking it down into its most specific components. And I think that's a really important thing, which sort of takes me into this other topic. And the reason why this came up is, I think, John, as you know, and I've mentioned on the show, right now, we've just launched a PinPoint Performance and Wellness Center in Woodbridge at Islington and Rutherford. And this is very much designed for this. This is next level, really wanting to take yourself to the most optimal function that you can get out of your body. And these are the types of things that my team is doing there, is how do we get someone functioning optimally? And these were the conversations that we were having, where we're thinking through this stuff and we're meshing the fitness world with health. And that's really, really important when you're doing this stuff, because so many people will go to gyms and not now, obviously, but when we finally can go eventually back to gyms, people will go to gyms and you just sort of do that. And the worst thing you could do, John, is like, and you can appreciate this, is like just watch someone else and learn from that. And it's like, okay, I guess what they did is they picked the bar up, they brought it down to their chest, and they pressed it up. Get some advice, get some professional advice when you're doing this stuff, because that's really how injuries happen. And it's really important that you work within what is the reality of your body. And when you're dealing with someone specifically, you'll be able to figure out what are the things that you should do and what are the things that you should avoid. So I guess in overall, my point is this: there are no bad exercises out there. There's nothing that's inherently bad that the whole population should avoid. Are there exercises that are probably not good for certain individuals and those individuals should avoid them? Yes, absolutely. But that's individualized. It really comes down to who you are, what your function is, what you can do, your movement patterns, and then building on that. And the beauty about this is even if you are one of those individuals, that doesn't mean you'll never be able to do that exercise, because that's what progression is all about. We can find a way to start someone in those exercises and progress them through so that they're finally getting to be able to do that exercise that could potentially have a lot of benefit for whatever their goals might be. And that's really important when it comes to care for athletes and people like that, when we're providing their pain and injury treatments, is really the performance aspect of it. But again, it's not just high-end athletes that need performance and wellness. It's the average person. I think a lot of people out there would love to be functioning at what their optimal capacity is, and so that's a reality for everybody.
It's interesting too, because you brought up squatting, which is, it's such a basic human movement. And we squat to forge things off the ground. We have since the beginning of time. It's just a very functional movement for us. That's why we're built for it. But at the same time, performing the squat, to your point, I mean, it's a multi-joint movement, and there's so much that needs to be taken into consideration. You look at you and I are squatting beside each other, completely different body dynamics, the two of us, different limb length, different spines. We may have different injuries, and you'll say to the point of your performance clinic, I mean, there's the function of your feet, the spacing, the using of the glutes to get up out of the squat. There's a strong core. You need a strong upper back to support the bar. It's not just bending down and getting back up. So there's a lot to it, to your point, even though it's such a basic human movement, right?
Yeah, and you know what? You actually did an amazing job there breaking down those components. I think you did a better job than I did, in all honesty, in terms of taking it in that progression, and that's what I meant. So let's say you're one of those individuals that, it might not be right for you to do a squat right now because you're missing those elements like you've highlighted, whether it's your upper back strength in order just to hold the bar, or whether it's your glute strength in order to get in and out of that hip movement, or whatever it may be. That's what our job really becomes, is how do we look for that? And when you look at, in terms of things like, one of the biggest goals that a lot of people have is weight loss, right? And one of the things that I think is a big downfall in weight loss is that people think that, if they just diet and just do a bunch of cardio, that they'll lose weight. And really, there's probably a lot of people listening right now that have tried that and it doesn't work. But the minute that you throw in resistance training, things change, because as you build muscle mass, that muscle mass is going to help you to burn calories even when you're not working out. And certain big movements like squatting and deadlifting and pressing, those things work so many muscles at one time that the impact of that is tremendous, right? Like, everybody pictures working out as being a bicep curl, but it's the most minimalistic thing, right? Where you're doing a bicep curl, you're only isolating one muscle group that's very, very small. But when you start isolating things like your legs, your core, your back, your chest, these big muscle groups, that's really when you're going to, beef up in that muscle capacity. And as that happens, you're going to start to see that difference with weight loss.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because people want that. It's that dichotomy of people want to lose weight and and get on the scale and have the number go down, but at the same time they want to get big and strong. Those two are they're loggerheads of each other. I mean, if you look at any Olympic weightlifter, they're not skinny, and there's a reason for that, because they need that extra weight to move the strength. They're healthy, but they just need some extra strength at the core to get that weight happening. So it's again, to your point, the performance clinic, before you really start getting serious, I think with any of this stuff, I mean, you can walk around the gym and see what other people are doing, but to avoid injury, if you're going to get somewhat serious about this stuff, especially with multi-joint movements like you just mentioned, you got to reach out to you guys. I'm going to do it. Everybody needs a refresher and can always learn something new, right?
Yeah, and that really was the genesis for this too, is we get so many people that we help to get better, but they're better and they're like, they might be in some type of acute pain, and then they're better, and then they really, they have other goals where it's like, yeah, but I used to run marathons and I want to get back to that, but this knee problem, I'm afraid of it, or I don't know what to do, and instead of leaving it up and saying like, okay, well, try to do this, try to do that without any guidance, that's really what this performance center is for individuals that want to take it to the next level, that really want to work on that specific function of their body.
Let's take a short break, and we'll leave the phone lines open for you. Have questions about this or anything else with your health, bring it on. 416-870-6400. PinPointHealth.ca is the website to log on and check out what we've been talking about so far as Dr. Lou's clinics are concerned, and we'll continue. Pinpoint Health Show right here, Global News Radio. 11:20. Welcome back. Pinpoint Health Show. PinPointHealth.ca to reach out to Dr. Lou after the show. 1-855-55-Dr. Lou, DRLOU, and the Lou Down, the long form podcast. You can catch up on those anytime at your leisure. And right here and now, though, some concerns. You have them. Bring them on. Pain concerns or otherwise. 416-870-6400 is the number you want to use. Still got lots of time at 11:21. Go ahead, pal.
Yeah, John. So, I mean, that we started the show talking about the Performance Center. Another thing that I think that I want to bring up today, and this is, one of the things that I've consistently said on this show, and it's not just for people that listen to me on the show, but even those people that come to one of the clinics, like, I'm open to hearing feedback on what we could always do better, or what maybe someone perceives as gone wrong, or whatever it may be. And at the beginning of last week, I had a very interesting issue that happened, and I think it all worked out in the end. And I'll share the story because I think it just highlights the importance of communication. That when you can have a discussion, the things that can happen. So, someone called the 1-855 number and wanted my opinion on some imaging that they had, and wanted to seek treatment. And there is a fee for my assessment. It's $100. It's a pretty comprehensive assessment. In fact, it's below industry standard in terms of the pricing and things like that. It takes about an hour. I spend a lot of time with people. And this individual, I guess there was a misunderstanding between this person and the administrator who took the call, in terms of him just wanting to sort of speak casually to me and get my advice. Now, one of the things, and my administrator said, you've got to see him in order to get an actual medical opinion. There's no way that can be provided over the phone. And so this person sent an email, and they weren't very happy, and they said some things that were concerning in terms of how they felt the Pinpoint Health operated and things like that. And so I reached out to this person, and I had a conversation with them, and we sort of went back and forth. But by the end, I was able to help this person, and this is the point I'm trying to make, is not to get into the nitty gritty of the story, but really the importance of why communication is key. And I was able to help this person in terms of navigating what they sort of needed just with the simple phone call. And this person actually was kind enough to, although I just, it was just a quick 2 or 3 minutes on the phone in terms of trying to help them with their problem. They actually made a $100 donation to Heart and Stroke on my behalf. And it was really incredible, right? Like, and it really showed me, and that's really the way I try to run my company, is in terms of like, hey, if there's a problem, number one, it's probably not on purpose. Whatever happened or whatever misunderstanding there's, it's probably just that, a misunderstanding, a lack of communication, or a breakdown of communication. And my theory on these things is always try to work with people, try to see what's going on, because it's not worth the bad reputation. And genuinely, I do this show, and part of the issue with what this person was saying was that they called into question why I do this show. And that it was more trying to be a big infomercial and advertisement. And I could tell you it really isn't. Like, I genuinely do this show because I really believe it's important to give people as much information about their health as possible. Obviously, no doubt there's an advertising component in it. I'm on the radio, people are listening, so that I'm not trying to be naive or lie or anything, but I really try to provide the content that I provide on the show. I really try to make it as useful as possible for the listeners, whether they come see me or not. And I would probably think that the vast majority of listeners, I know, have not come to see me. And we get calls all the time, John, that people who say, oh, I've been listening to you for years, but they've never come to see me. So it really is for that. That is the primary objective of this show, is to provide content around healthcare, specifically things related to pain and injury. But then with this person, we were able to have this nice conversation. And just the fact that they made that $100 donation, and they said they would write a nice review about me, and that, I had restored sort of their hope in terms of me and the company, was really important to me. And that is the level of transparency that I want. And I bring this up, number one, to give the story, but number two, that you can call me with this, whatever it may be. That phone line is open. An administrator will take that call. They'll get it to me, and I will call you. I'll call you personally, I promise. And we'll work through whatever the problem was or whatever issue that you may have had. I don't think that there's many. I think we run a pretty tight ship, and we do a good job, but we are humans, and any of us can really make mistakes. And so I think it's really important that if people feel that, instead of just jumping to writing a negative review, which is sort of the culture we live in right now, give us a chance. Give us a chance, right? Give us a chance to see if there's something that we could do to be better or whatever. And sometimes it might just be a pure mistake on our end where we were absolutely wrong, and we'll apologize and say sorry. But again, in my experience, most of this stuff is just miscommunication or a breakdown of communication. And if that person is listening, because he mentioned that he listens often to the show, I did really appreciate the donation that was made on my behalf. I thought that was extremely kind, and it was really touching. It really gave me, again, that sort of, it's those things on why I do this show. So I really want to thank that person for doing that, and it was really, really kind, and it meant a lot to me. And I think it's a very nice act of generosity, and probably we could use not just generosity towards me, but more generosity in the world. So anyways, if you're someone that has seen me or heard me or come to the clinic, seen somebody else, any issues, whatever it may be, feel free to give us a call. I'm happy to talk about it at any point and make sure that we get, our goal is customer service. It's providing the best patient care as possible. And that's really what we're striving for at all times.
And it's to reach out, by the way, 1-855-55 Dr. Lou, that's the number we're talking about, or info@pinpointhealth.ca for an email. And to the point of it, it's just, you're just advertising on the radio. If that was true, we wouldn't have open phone lines ready to take phone calls. We'd simply just let ads run and be done with it. But that's the whole point of the show, is to reach out and help people live, which we are, by the way, 11:27 on Saturday morning. Still got lots of time, 416-870-6400. About that clinic. Now that you piqued my interest, up at Islington, right? In Islington.
Yeah, Islington and Rutherford.
Rutherford. Yeah. You could be your average Joe, or you could be an athlete to come there, yeah?
Absolutely, yeah, and we can take the average Joe into becoming sort of that urban athlete, right? Like that's the really important thing of that journey too, right? It's not for no one, and it really is specific to what your goals are, right? Our team of healthcare professionals and trainers are going to be there to help you with whatever your goal may be, right? Like for some people, it might just be that they want to run a marathon one time. For other people, they might be a junior elite athlete or striving to become, an amateur or professional or something like that. Whatever, and it really is designed for everybody, and it already had a history, and we've come in and we've sort of provided the healthcare side and revamped things. And so a lot of the people that were already there are already utilizing the service, and everybody's very, very happy thus far. And it's, I think, an incredible thing for PinPoint Health, for the brand, to have something like this where we can, that's one of the things that's so amazing. Again, I said incredibly biased. This is the point where I'm advertising, I guess. But with PinPoint Health, where some of our clinics are very much the walk-in clinic type of setting where someone needs to see a walk-in doctor, and then they come to the physio rehab because they have low-level pain or something, whatever it may be, and then all the way to specialized services like PRP injections, bracing, to other things, and now this performance center, which is unique in what we do. We've always incorporated training, but not in a facility like this where we have the extensive equipment that we have to really do these things and build somebody's body up to where they want it to be and what their goals are. So, if you're living in that area, it might be worthwhile to give me a call and just find out more about what we're offering there. And you see if it can become part of your health plan.
Never mind living in the area, man. I'm heading up there for sure. I need all the help I can get. But, the timing, I think, is really key on this, too, because a lot of people, they can't now New Year's resolution notwithstanding, but they can't just simply say, you know what, this is going to be the week that I'm going to start lifting weights and working out. And they head over to a gym, they buy a membership, and then they lose interest or they hurt themselves shortly after starting, and then they never go back. This way, you can't go to a gym right now. So what better way to get yourself tuned up ahead of time, learn how to do what you want to achieve at your clinic, at this performance clinic, and I'll see you there, by the way. And then once the gym's open, if they hurry up with that, you will be able to hit the ground running. You know what I mean? Because you'll have the knowledge and the physical know-how to get started on achieving whatever goal it is you want to achieve.
Absolutely. And the other thing here is, even with the COVID-19 restrictions, this is a healthcare service. So this is deemed to be essential. This is not something where it can't happen or doesn't happen. It's happening right now. We're training people there, and we're providing that the fitness aspect of health services. So it's even sort of good from that point, especially for people who want to be involved in that. And then I'm I guess hopeful that most gyms will start to reopen in some type of phased approach, just for getting people back to doing activities and being as healthy as possible. I think is a really important thing. But yeah, that's one of the advantages of this performance center as well.
We got a few minutes before we got to take a break. Couple, where do you want to take it, pal, before we line up some phone calls?
Yeah, one of the other interesting things that we've worked on in the last few months, and I've spoken about over the last few months, is the genomic testing. And there's lots of traction and interest that we're getting with that. So I'll bring it up again for anybody who sort of is interested. I'll start by saying that this is not like an ancestry test. Like, this isn't determining, where your ancestors come from in terms of ethnicity, culture, things like that. This is actually your genomics. It's 4 broad categories: mood and behavior, cardiovascular health, methylation, and finally metabolism, and looking at specific genes within each of those. This is not by any means all of your genetic profile that 100% about everything you are, but it's a comprehensive report in those 4 sections based on the scientific literature on which genes mean what things. And if you're looking to sort of find out more about yourself and navigate your wellness, and this is the other thing, this is very much a wellness type of thing that you want to do. This isn't necessarily specifically a treatment intervention or a diagnostic tool per se. It might help to serve as a diagnostic tool in some way in certain instances, but that is going to be based on mine or whoever's referring the clinical judgment. But the majority of what we're doing this for is just wellness, people who want to find things out. And one of the key examples that I've been speaking about, which I think hits home with a lot of people, is let's take the example of diet plans or what you should eat and what you shouldn't eat. And we can sort of separate these things into 2 big broad categories, where you look at the diets that are high in carbohydrates, such as a vegetarian diet or vegan diet. I guess that's our break. Let's hold that thought, and we'll get to that after the break.
You bet. We'll pick it up, and that gives you some time to grab a phone as well. You have concerns about your health. That's, again, why we do the show every week. Phone lines are open. We're live. Bring it on. 416-870-6400. Pinpoint Health Show, Global News Radio. And welcome back, Pinpoint Health Show. Good to have you along. It is 416-870-6400. 416-870-6400. Do you have any questions for the remainder of our time here this morning at 11:37? So you still got quite a bit of time. You can email info@pinpointhealth.ca and simply the website pinpointhealth.ca to find clinics that are operational, open, and functioning near you, and including the Performance Clinic at Islington and Rutherford, which is completely piqued my interest, brother. That sounds fantastic as well.
Thanks, John. Yeah, we've got quiet phone lines today. I guess everybody's feeling well and doing well, which I guess is a good thing. It's funny, every time someone comes into the clinic and I introduce myself, I always ask them how they're doing. And literally almost 95% of people say, well, the same line, like, well, if I was good, I wouldn't be here to see you. So that's the only negative part of my job, is nobody's sort of happy to see me. But, but then we have a good laugh. And by the end of it, I try to give people the advice that they need and get them sort of going anyways. But before the break, we were sort of talking about the genomics, and I brought up the point of, the example of why something like this, like why a test like this might be important. And I was going to give the example of, take somebody with a goal of, say, trying to lose weight. And they're fluctuating between diets. You'll read some stuff that says, well, if you want to lose weight, you should be on a vegetarian or vegan diet, which is a higher carb diet and has lower amounts of fat and proteins. Versus you'll read other things that will say, well, no, you should actually be on a high protein, high fat diet like a keto diet, and minimize the carbs as much as possible. And you'll hear people on both sides. You'll find some cases of people who did the diet and it was tremendous, or chose that lifestyle instead of a diet, and they've lost all kinds of weight. And then other people say, I tried it, it didn't work for me, and they yo-yo back and forth, and they never really stick to something. And there's more than just these two, but I'm using these two as an example to sort of highlight something. Within this genomic testing, one of the things, we can look at 2 different genes, and those genes will tell us how you metabolize both carbohydrates and fats, and whether it will promote weight gain with you in your body, and that's under the metabolism report. So this is a really interesting gene, right? So as an example, and I keep using my case because it's mine and I could share it, when I was able to do my genomic testing, I was able to find out, carbohydrate consumption for me will promote weight gain. Now, it's important to remember that we think of carbohydrates as just breads and pastas, as an example, right? But it's much more than that. Most vegetables, fruits, whole grains, oats, all of these things are actually quite high in carbohydrates. And that's why, the vegetarian or vegan diets are going to be high in that, because you're eliminating most of the meat and the fats. And then, in my genomic profile, fat consumption doesn't promote weight gain for me. And so this was a really important thing for me to find out, because I don't have to guess. I don't have to fluctuate. I too have been sort of a victim of trying to think, well, I wonder what's better, right? Like, I wonder what would be better in terms of this goal. And you fluctuate back and forth between the two. And, I've met people who have gone vegetarian. They've lost all kinds of weight. And I've tried to go completely plant-based at times. And it's never worked. And to no surprise, right? My genomics don't really call for that. They call for much more of a high protein, high fat diet. An example being, say, a Mediterranean diet, right? A lot of the healthy things that would be high in fats and proteins, cheeses, olives, nuts, fish, meat, all these things. And that's a really important thing that I was able to find out in this genomic testing. And that's just an example of 2 genes. There's a total of, I think, probably 50 or 60 genes that are looked at that give us an indication of so many different things about your health. It will tell you, what genotype or what variation of the gene for, say, coronary artery disease you might have.
Right.
And that might be really important, right? Because I think of myself, again, using my example, I have a family history of these things. I have a lot of my grandparents, my dad, my uncles, my aunts have all passed away as a result of things like diabetes, heart and stroke problems. And so for me, that's a big concern. And I was able to find out that, from a diabetic perspective, I'm actually genomically quite good. My levels of insulin are good. They work well versus coronary artery disease, I'm at a high risk. And so what does that tell me? The lifestyle changes that I can make with that is I do need to make sure that I'm still doing my cardiovascular exercise, right? Making sure that I'm working on that aspect and that I'm not just, say, focusing on just resistance training. Since I'm at increased risk for cardiovascular events, I want to make sure that my cardiovascular health is up to par, that it is where it should be. So these are the types of wellness things that you can get out of this report and make these changes. And for anyone who wants to find out more about that, again, just give us a call. I'm happy to go through it. A lot of people probably have questions as it relates to their specific health, and that's fine. I'm happy to answer those questions as it relates specifically to your health. A lot of people think this is diagnostic. Again, it may help in certain cases depending on what we're talking about. It might help in some type of, diagnostic picture. It's not going to be fully comprehensive in that sense, but it is much more for overall wellness, right? So if you're, again, somebody who's looking for what else can you do to really find where you can be as well as possible, this is something, because then you can eliminate a lot of the guessing game. You can figure out what your genetics are and what the right things are for your body. Another big thing in this is availability of different vitamins and how you use them in your body and whether they're bioavailable or not. And that might make it easier for you to make a choice on which vitamins you should or should not be taking. This is all really important stuff, I think, for anybody who's trying to navigate the wellness space, because there's so many things out there. And if you're just trying everything, it's probably not as good as having a concentrated effort on the things that you actually need. And this can help you figure that out.
Yeah, I mean, for everybody, until they kind of do this sort of thing, it's just a big game of, pin the tail on the donkey blindfolded. You're going to try everything and see what sticks. And to your point, you might spend years and never actually find out where you should be until you want to really, pigeonhole yourself in something that you should be doing. What's the before we break? What are the costs to it, and what kind of how's the process work? How do you get it done?
Yeah, so it starts by a phone call with me. We've got to determine that there's some usefulness in it for you and your health and your wellness. And then it's a saliva-based test that gets ordered. It's shipped directly to you. You do the saliva sample. You send it out. It goes to a lab in Montreal at McGill University, and then a report is created. The cost for that process in terms of figuring that out is it's about $550 plus the taxes. So it's not cheap by any stretch of the imagination. But again, the good thing here is your genomics don't change. So this is sort of a one-time thing, and you'll know a lot about yourself.
Love it. Let's take a short break. One last one before we get to the remainder of the show. That means it's the cue for you to call if you have questions and want to get it in now. 416-870-6400. It's 11:45, so you still got some minutes. We'll continue Pinpoint Health Show right here, Global News Radio. Welcome back, Pinpoint Health Show. So I'm going to tell you got a few minutes to call in now, so don't wait till the last second if you have concerns about your health. Bring it on here, Dr. Lou, ready to answer. 416-870-6400, info at pinpointhealth.ca, and the website pinpointhealth.ca. Lots of good information to be gleaned there. And you'll also catch the Lou Down, the long-form podcast series with Dr. Lou as well. So, yeah, the genome testing, we talk about this, and it just sounds so absolutely fascinating. And, yeah, it's, $500 plus a little more for tax, whatever. This is this is something that's not going to change. It's your genome. You got it for your entire life, and it's really a small price to pay when you think about what it could do to enlighten you and open up things about your health you would otherwise never ever figure out on your own, right? Unless you fluked it.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, this is completely, it's available if you want it, right? This is not something that anyone has to do. And again, it's not like, it's the most important thing in the world, but I just think sometimes our health takes an investment. The one of the things that I wanted to say before the break, that on why knowing is so important, and you sort of alluded to it, the human psyche is one of like short-term reward, right? Where if you go on a diet and you don't see quick results, then you typically give up or you switch or whatever. The nice thing about this stuff is it can give you the short-term goal, and it can eliminate the short-term goal, because once you know your genetics, all it's going to take is that you stick with it. One of the things that often goes wrong in diet plans or exercise routines is that people stop, and they typically will stop at the 2-month mark, and they think like, oh, I've been doing this for 2 months and I've seen very little results. And what they don't realize is that they're coming. They're like, you're just on the cusp of when it's all really going to start to happen. And if you don't stick it out, then of course it's not going to happen. And then you keep going back and forth and yo-yoing between these things. It never. Consistency is the best thing when it comes to any type of health goal. If you're consistent with something, you're going to achieve what you want, and this can make you consistent, and this can help you determine what are the right combination of exercises, whether you should be more aerobic versus resistance training, the types of things you might need to supplement with, the types of things you should be eating, and that could be really, really important towards your overall health. To sort of go, I tried to make this show sort of all of the cool that word novel only became popular in 2020, but all the novel things that we're doing being, the Performance and Wellness Center, the genomics, and finally PRP injections, which we've spent a lot of time over the years speaking about. And it's still something that we do, that we offer. Thankfully now, with some of the restrictions around COVID easing up and the surgeons having time and being able to get back in, we can get these things done for you. And we especially use this for people who have knee osteoarthritis. So if you have arthritis in your knees and you're interested in some type of a management approach that can help control the swelling, the pain, potentially delaying what might be an eventual knee replacement, whatever it may be, if you just haven't been able to get that under control, the scientific literature around PRP injections for arthritic knees is really, really good. And clinically, we see the same results, that when people get this done, they tend to do much better. This is by no means a cure, right? Like, I'm very realistic with everything that I talk about. It's not a cure, but can it help to control your pain and your level of swelling for a period of time? Yes, absolutely. And that could be a very, very important thing for certain individuals. And the example that I'll often give on this show is the example of someone who you're trying to delay knee surgery. Anybody that has an arthritic knee that's seen their surgeon, the surgeon has told them all the same thing. Delay this for as long as you can, because you really want to try to get that knee surgery, that knee replacement, done only one time in your life. And on average, those pieces will last about 15 years, which means half will last less than that, and half will, geez, I couldn't get it out, John, and half will last more. So this is really, really important that people take that into consideration. And if you could do things to buy yourself more and more time before you get there, that's actually a good thing. And that's probably what your surgeon has recommended. And part of this plan could be a PRP injection. It might, that's one example. It might just be you're having knee pain and you haven't even had a conversation with somebody about knee surgery or anything, and then we could take a look at it. And if we do find that it's the arthritis that's creating that pain, because that's what we've got to figure out first and foremost, then this might be an option. And this is, again, a really good option. It's minimally invasive. It's done by knee surgeons, so that level of specification is as good as it can be. And the other important thing here that I think a lot of people really want to understand is that this is simply your blood being drawn, put through a centrifuge, extracting the platelets from it, which is the component of blood that has to do with anti-inflammatory properties, and it's injected back. So there's no foreign substance. There's nothing there that isn't you. And that's another thing. We're using the powerful agents that exist in our bodies and putting them back. And the reason why we're doing that is joints like the knee actually don't have very good blood supply. And so they don't get the effects of those platelets unless the platelet is somehow extracted, and we can extract large amounts of it and inject that directly back into the knee. And that's really an amazing thing, because it does a lot of amazing things, because, again, our bodies are designed to heal themselves, and we can take the natural things that help in our bodies and put it back in. That's where, healthcare and medicine is moving, is really to these approaches. And, one of the things that'll be coming down the line, and it's available in some parts of the world already, not so much here, but stem cells. Same thing. Those are your own cells being injected back into different areas of the body for different things. And this is really amazing because, I think more and more people want to avoid medications or foreign substances. Not that those are always bad, right? There's times and places for everything. But if we can do more to use more of the natural things that are endogenous to our body, which means they're created in our body, I think that's a really good thing. And I think that what it does is it minimizes potential negative side effects, and that's what a lot of people want with this. And so I think that would be another reason. So today's show, the theme of it has sort of been all of these new things, these new innovation, the new healthcare techniques and things that are available. And a lot of these things aren't by any means brand new. They've been around for a long time, but they're just sort of starting to come to the forefront of everyday healthcare. And PinPoint Health is offering them. So, feel free to give us a call, check out the website, whatever it may be, to find out more about any of these things, or give me a call, 1-855-55-Dr. Lou, DRLOU, or info@pinpointhealth.ca.
And reach out indeed to Dr. Lou. Call that number. Go to the website. You'll catch the Lou down as well, the long-form podcast, and take advantage of that performance clinic as well. So all those things, 1-855-55-DRLOU. Dr. Lou is a way to do that. We'll catch you next time. Pinpoint Health Show right here, Global News Radio.
The preceding program is a specialty program. Unless otherwise identified, the participants on the program are not employees of Chorus Entertainment. Opinions expressed may not necessarily reflect the views and policies of Global News Radio 640 Toronto.